The Festival of Eternal Dominion was the greatest celebration in the Empire. Once every 100 years, the rulers of 3 galaxies gathered at Prime to remember their victories. They celebrated the destruction of every species that had ever challenged them. They toasted to their eternal power. High Arbiter stood on his floating throne above the capital city. His gray skin reflected the light of 1,000 fireworks. His 4 eyes watched the sky where 10,000 warships flew in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology. Each one could destroy an entire planet. 40,000 years, said to his advisors. 40,000 years of absolute rule. No species in the universe can challenge us. No weapon can harm us. We are eternal. His advisors bowed their heads in agreement. They were the most powerful beings in 3 galaxies. Their quantum-fold drives could move ships across the universe in seconds. Their gravity lances could tear apart stars. Their predictive computers could see the future itself. Nothing surprised the Empire. Nothing scared them. Nothing was unknown to them. Until that night. Deep in space, far from the celebration, a sensor station detected something strange. The operator, a young named, stared at his screen with confusion. His instruments showed something appearing in empty space, but it was not using any technology he recognized. There was no quantum fold signature. There was no hyperspace tunnel. There was no wormhole. The object was simply appearing from nothing, like a ghost becoming solid. "This is impossible," whispered. He called his supervisor. His supervisor called the military command. Within minutes, the message reached High Arbiter himself. "What do you mean it appeared from nothing?" demanded. "My lord, we have no explanation," the military commander said. "Our instruments cannot understand how this vessel arrived. It broke no barriers we can detect. It used no method of travel we know. According to our readings, it simply was not there, and then it was." Felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt curious. "Show me this vessel." The image appeared before him. The ship was ugly by standards. It was angular and rough, covered in thick metal plates. It had no elegant curves, no beautiful designs. It looked like something a primitive species would build in their first attempts at space travel. But there was something about it that made uncomfortable. The ship looked like it was built for one purpose only: war. "Can you read their markings?" he asked. "Yes, my lord. Our translation systems have decoded their language. The vessel identifies itself as UNS Perseverance. The letters UNS appear to stand for United Nations ship, and the species." The commander paused. "What species?" demanded. "They call themselves human, my lord. They say they come from a planet called Earth." Searched his memory. He had lived for 3,000 years. He had studied every species in 3 galaxies. He had personally ordered the extinction of dozens of civilizations, but he had never heard of humans. He had never heard of Earth. "Search the databases," he ordered. "Find everything we know about this species." The search took only seconds. The answer came back empty. "My lord, we have no records of any species called human. We have no records of any planet called Earth. According to our databases, which contain information on every known civilization in the universe, this species does not exist." For the first time in 1,000 years, felt a chill run through his body. "That is impossible," he said. "We know everything. We have mapped every corner of 3 galaxies. No species can exist without our knowledge. And yet, my lord, they are here." Watched the strange ship on his screen. It was moving slowly through space, its primitive engines pushing it forward. It was broadcasting signals on radio frequencies that they had stopped using 10,000 years ago. Everything about this vessel said it should be weak. Everything about it said it should be easy to destroy. But something deep in its ancient mind whispered a warning. This ship had done something impossible. It had appeared from nothing. It existed when it should not exist. "What are your orders, my lord?" The military commander asked. Made his decision. Send 3 Hegemony-class destroyers to intercept, capture the vessel if possible, destroy it if necessary. I want to know how they arrived here. I want to know where they came from, and I want to know if there are more of them. 3 destroyers, my lord, for a single primitive ship. Is that not excessive? Looked at the image of the human vessel one more time. It was small. It was crude. It should be nothing compared to power. Call it caution, he said. I have not survived 3,000 years by underestimating the unknown. The 3 destroyers broke from the festival formation and jumped toward the human ship. Each destroyer was 5 times larger than the Perseverance. Each one carried weapons that could crack a moon in half. The battle, if there was one, would last less than a second. Or so they believed. Across the Empire, billions of citizens watched the live broadcast. This was entertainment for them. They would watch the primitive vessel be captured or destroyed. They would laugh at the foolish species that had stumbled into space. Then they would return to their celebration. None of them understood what they were truly witnessing. None of them realized that this moment would change the galaxy forever. Because they had made a mistake. In 40,000 years of conquest, they had come to believe that they knew everything. They believed that nothing in the universe could surprise them. They believed that their power was absolute and eternal. They were wrong. The humans had not stumbled into their space by accident. The humans had not come unprepared, and the humans had a very different understanding of the word impossible. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain watched the 3 alien warships approaching on her screen. She had been a soldier for 30 years. She had fought in wars that nearly destroyed her home planet. She had lost friends, family, and her faith in easy victories. But she had never lost her determination. Captain, her tactical officer said, 3 vessels approaching. They are heavily armed. Their technology is far beyond ours. Nodded slowly. She had expected this. From the moment their experimental drive had thrown them into this strange region of space, she had known they would face challenges. She had known they might not survive. But survival was not the only thing that mattered. Open a channel, she said. Let us see what these aliens want. The message from the ships arrived seconds later. It was simple and direct. Surrender immediately. Resistance will result in destruction. You have no choice. Read the message twice, then she smiled. They think we have no choice, she said to her crew. They do not know humans very well. The crew of the Perseverance prepared for battle. They did not know if they would survive. They did not know if they would ever see Earth again. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty. They would not surrender. The 3 destroyers moved into attack position around the human vessel. Their commanders felt no fear. They felt no doubt. This would be easy. This would be quick. The primitive ship would surrender or die. Commander Os led the small fleet. He had destroyed 100 vessels in his career. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. A single alien ship was nothing to him. Open a channel, he ordered. Give them one final chance to surrender. The message went out across all frequencies. Alien vessel, this is Commander Os of the Empire. You have entered our space without permission. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. Os waited for the response. His predictive computer had already calculated the outcome. The aliens would surrender within 0.003 seconds of receiving the message. No species had ever refused a demand. Fear of their power was universal. The response came, but it was not what the computer predicted. This is Captain of the United Nations ship Perseverance. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. We do not recognize your authority over this region of space. Stand down your weapons, or we will defend ourselves. Os stared at the communication screen. He did not understand. The alien captain had refused. She had actually refused. Did she not know who he was? Did she not understand the power of the Empire? "Scan their vessel," he ordered. "Find their weaknesses." The scan revealed what he expected. The human ship was primitive in every way. Its armor was simple metal alloys. Its weapons appeared to be kinetic projectiles, a technology that had abandoned thousands of years ago. Its engines were slow and inefficient. "They have no chance," his tactical officer said. "Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Their armor cannot withstand our gravity lances. They are completely outmatched." Oz felt his confidence return. The alien captain was simply stupid. She did not understand the situation. He would teach her the price of defiance. "All ships open fire, destroy them." 3 gravity lances activated. These weapons could tear apart the molecular bonds of any material. They could rip a planet's crust from its core. They could destroy anything in the known universe. The beams struck the Perseverance directly and passed straight through. Oz watched in shock as his weapons did nothing. The beams hit the human ship but caused no damage. It was as if the vessel was not entirely there, like trying to grab smoke with your hands. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why are our weapons not working?" "Commander, we do not understand. The ship appears to exist in some kind of dimensional flux. It is here, but also not here. Our weapons cannot find a solid target." Before Oz could respond, the human ship fired back. The weapons were simple. They were just metal slugs, pieces of tungsten accelerated to incredible speeds. They had stopped using such primitive projectiles 10,000 years ago. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, plasma, gravity beams, anything advanced. They were not designed to stop a piece of metal moving at 1/3 the speed of light. The first slug hit Oz's ship like the fist of an angry god. It punched through the shield as if it did not exist. It tore through the hull and exited the other side, leaving a hole large enough to fly a small craft through. The second slug hit the engine core. The destroyer exploded in a ball of fire and light. Oz died without understanding what had happened. His last thought was simple confusion. This was not possible. This could not be happening. But it was. The Perseverance turned to face the remaining 2 destroyers. On its bridge, Captain gave her orders with calm precision. "Target their engines first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need information." The gunners obeyed. 2 more shots rang out. 2 more slugs crossed the void of space. The remaining destroyers lost their engines in seconds. They drifted helplessly, their crews in panic. The entire battle had lasted 11 seconds. Across the Empire, billions of citizens watched in stunned silence. The live broadcast had shown everything. They had seen 3 of their mighty warships approach a primitive vessel. They had seen their weapons fail completely. They had seen 1 destroyer explode and 2 more crippled. For the first time in 10,000 years, warships had been defeated. On Prime, High Arbiter gripped his throne so hard his claws left marks in the metal. His advisors stood frozen with shock. None of them could speak. None of them could explain what they had just witnessed. "How?" finally whispered. "How did they do that?" No one had an answer. The broadcast continued. The human vessel was approaching one of the disabled destroyers. A small craft launched from its side and attached to the ship. Minutes later, a voice spoke on all frequencies. "This is Captain. We have boarded your vessel and taken your crew prisoner. They will not be harmed. We are not monsters, but understand this clearly. We did not come here looking for war. We were thrown into your space by accident. All we want is to find our way home." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was harder. "However, if you attack us again, we will defend ourselves. Your weapons cannot touch us. Ours can destroy you. Think carefully before you make your next move." The transmission ended. Sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, the festival of eternal dominion had stopped. No one was celebrating anymore. No one was cheering. The sky full of warships suddenly looked less impressive and more vulnerable. "My lord," an advisor finally said, "what are your orders?" Thought about his options. He could send more ships. He could send 100 ships, 1,000 ships. But what if they all failed? What if this human vessel destroyed them all? The damage to the Empire's reputation would be catastrophic. Then he thought of something worse. Across 100,000 worlds, there were species the Empire had conquered, species they had enslaved, species who had been kept in line by fear of power. What would those species think now? What would they do when they learned that a single primitive ship had defeated 3 destroyers? The answer terrified him. He had to destroy these humans. He had to destroy them completely, utterly, without mercy. He had to prove that the Empire was still invincible. "Mobilize the Third Armada," he ordered. 10,000 ships. Find these humans and wipe them from existence. Leave no survivors. Leave no evidence. This never happened. His advisors rushed to obey, but even as they ran, knew a terrible truth. It was already too late. The broadcast had been seen across the Empire. The subjugated species had watched it too. They had seen the impossible happen. They had seen an empire that claimed to be unbeatable get beaten. And across 100,000 worlds, in hidden places and secret meetings, the slaves of the Empire began to whisper a new word. Human. They did not know what it meant. They did not know who these strange beings were, but they knew one thing. For the first time in thousands of years, someone had stood against the Empire and won. Hope, long thought dead, began to stir again. On the Perseverance, Captain stared at the stars on her. She knew that more enemies would come. She knew that the fight was just beginning. But for now, in this moment, she allowed herself a small smile. "We survived," her first officer said. "I was not sure we would." "Neither was I," admitted, "but we did, and now they know we are here. Now they know we can fight." "What do we do next, Captain?" Thought about the question. They were alone in hostile space. They had no allies, no support, no way home. An entire empire would soon be hunting them. But they were still alive. They were still fighting, and as long as they drew breath, they would never stop. "We survive," she said, "and we make them regret ever finding us." 6 months had passed since the first battle. The Empire had sent 10,000 ships to hunt the Perseverance. They had searched every corner of their space. They had checked every planet, every asteroid, every cloud of dust. They found nothing. The human ship had become a ghost. It appeared without warning, struck with deadly precision, and vanished before anyone could respond. No one knew where it would attack next. No one knew how to stop it. Captain sat in her command chair, studying the latest intelligence reports. Her face was tired. Her uniform was worn. 6 months of running and fighting had taken their toll on everyone aboard. "Status report," she said. Commander David, her first officer, stepped forward. "We have 42 phase slip jumps remaining. Our ammunition is at 30%. Food supplies will last another 3 months if we ration carefully." Nodded. These numbers were not good, but they were not surprising either. They had known from the beginning that this would be a war of survival, not victory. "And the crew?" "Tired but determined, Captain. Morale is actually higher than expected. The crew knows what we are fighting for." Chief Engineer spoke up from her station. "Captain, I have concerns about the phase slip drive. Every jump puts more strain on the system. I estimate we have 50 jumps before complete failure, maybe fewer. After that, we become a normal ship, and the Empire will find us." Absorbed this information silently. 50 jumps, maybe fewer. Their greatest advantage, the ability to phase through dimensions and avoid enemy weapons, would soon be gone. "Then we need to make every jump count," she said. "What is our next target?" The tactical officer pulled up a map. "There is a supply convoy moving through Sector 7. 20 transport ships carrying fuel and weapons to the Third Armada. If we destroy those supplies, the Armada will be forced to stop its search for at least 2 weeks. Do it, plot the course. The Perseverance phased out of normal space and disappeared. Across the galaxy, the Empire was in chaos. The Third Armada had been hunting the human ship for half a year with no success. Every time they thought they had cornered it, the vessel simply vanished. Every time they relaxed their guard, it reappeared and destroyed something important. Supply convoys were the favorite target. The humans seemed to understand that an army runs on supplies. Without fuel, the ships could not move. Without ammunition, they could not fight. The Perseverance was slowly strangling the Armada without ever facing it directly. High Arbiter received daily reports of the damage. Each report made him angrier than the last. Another convoy destroyed, his military commander said. 15 transport ships lost. The Armada is now operating at 60% capacity. Slammed his fist on his throne. How does one ship do this? We have 10,000 vessels hunting them. The human ship does not fight like anything we have encountered before. They do not seek direct battle. They do not hold territory. They strike from nowhere, cause maximum damage, and disappear before we can respond. Our predictive computers cannot calculate their movements. They are completely unpredictable. Then find a way to predict them. I do not care how. But there was no way. They had built their entire military strategy around overwhelming force. They had never needed to fight a guerrilla war. They had never faced an enemy that refused to stand and fight. The humans were teaching them painful lessons. On a distant planet called Prime, something else was happening. This world was home to a species they had conquered 8,000 years ago. They lived as slaves, working in factories that built weapons for the Empire. But tonight they were not working. Tonight they were watching a secret broadcast. The video showed the human ship destroying a military station. It showed the alien vessel appearing from nowhere, firing its primitive but deadly weapons, and vanishing before they could respond. The ghost ship struck again last night, a narrator said. The humans continue their fight against the Empire. They prove every day that they can be beaten. An old named watched with tears in his eyes. He had been born a slave. His parents had been slaves. His grandparents and their parents before them all slaves. He had never known freedom. He had never believed freedom was possible. But now, watching this strange human ship fight alone against an entire empire, he felt something he had not felt in his entire long life. Hope. If they can fight, he whispered, perhaps we can fight too. Similar scenes played out across 100,000 worlds. The subjugated species of the Empire watched the broadcasts. They shared them in secret. They whispered about the humans who had come from nowhere and challenged the invincible. Small rebellions began, nothing large, nothing organized, just slaves who refused to work, factories that mysteriously caught fire, weapons that disappeared from supply depots. The Empire was beginning to crack. On the Perseverance, Captain received a report that changed everything. Captain, her intelligence officer said, "We intercepted a transmission. You need to see this." The message appeared on her screen. As read it, her face grew pale. They were not just conquerors. They were harvesters. For thousands of years, they had been collecting genetic material from conquered species. They used this material in massive biofactories, processing it to create substances that extended the lives of the elite. Billions of beings had been fed into these factories. Entire species had been wiped out to keep the rulers alive for centuries. Felt sick. She had known the Empire was evil. She had known they were oppressors, but this was something worse. This was a horror beyond anything she had imagined. "There is more," the intelligence officer said. "They call it the Extinction Protocol." He showed her the second part of the message. They had developed a weapon capable of igniting a star, causing it to explode and destroy everything in its solar system. They had built this weapon specifically for situations like this, when an enemy proved too difficult to defeat through normal means. And now they were planning to use it. "They have traced our phase slip trail," the officer explained. "They know we came from somewhere beyond their space. They are sending a fleet to find our home and destroy it." Stared at the screen. Earth. They were going to destroy Earth. Her crew did not know what she knew. They did not know that the phase slip trail led directly back to their home planet. They did not know that their families, their friends, everyone they loved was in danger. But knew, and she knew what she had to do. "How long until they reach the dimensional boundary?" she asked. 2 weeks, Captain, maybe less." 2 weeks. That was all the time she had to stop them. One damaged ship against an armada carrying a weapon that could kill a star. The odds were impossible. The mission was suicide, but did not hesitate. "Set a course to intercept," she ordered. "We are not going to let them reach Earth." Commander stepped close to her. "Captain, you know we cannot win this fight, not against their full force." "I know," said quietly. "But we can slow them down, we can buy time, and sometimes that is enough." She looked at her crew, these brave men and women who had followed her through 6 months of hell. They had fought when they should have died. They had survived when survival was impossible. Now she was asking them to do it one more time. "I will not order anyone to follow me on this mission," she said. "This is a choice each person must make for themselves. We are going to stand against an armada to protect our home. Most of us will not survive. But if we do nothing, Earth dies. Everyone we love dies. I know what I choose. What do you choose?" The answer came without hesitation. Every hand raised. Every voice spoke as one. "We stand with you, Captain." Felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. There would be time for tears later, if they survived. "Then let us go save our home." The Perseverance turned toward the dimensional boundary, toward the final battle, toward whatever fate awaited them. Behind them, across 100,000 worlds, the rebellion grew. The dimensional boundary hung in space like a wound in reality. It shimmered with colors that had no name, a doorway between 2 regions of the universe that should never have touched. On one side lay the Empire. On the other side, somewhere far away, lay Earth. Captain stood on the bridge of the Perseverance and stared at this strange sight. Behind that shimmer was her home, her people, everything she had ever loved. And behind her, coming fast, was death. "Report," she said quietly. "The fleet will arrive in 6 hours," Commander reported. 5,000 warships, including the flagship of High Arbiter himself. They are carrying the Extinction Protocol weapon. "And our status?" 17 phase slip jumps remaining. Ammunition at 15%. All systems functioning, but the drive is showing signs of stress. Engineer says we should expect failure within the next 30 jumps under combat conditions. Did the math in her head. They had 17 jumps. The battle would require constant phasing in and out of normal space to avoid enemy fire. If they were lucky, they might survive for a few hours. If they were very lucky, they might take some of the enemy with them. But there was no scenario in which they won. There was no scenario in which they survived. 17 jumps, she said, against 5,000 ships. "Yes, Captain." Closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her daughter, growing up in New Angels on Earth. She thought about her husband, who had died in the Sol Defense Wars 10 years ago. She thought about all the dreams she had once had, dreams of peace and quiet and growing old surrounded by family. Those dreams were gone now, but perhaps if she fought hard enough, her daughter would still get to dream. "Open a channel to the crew," she ordered. The communication officer obeyed. Throughout the ship, speakers crackled to life. 4,000 men and women stopped what they were doing and listened. "This is Captain. In 6 hours the enemy will arrive. There are 5,000 of them and one of us. They carry a weapon that can destroy our home. We carry the determination to stop them." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I will not lie to you. We are not going to win this battle, not in any traditional sense. But winning is not our goal. Our goal is simple. We hold this line. We stand between them and Earth. We fight until we cannot fight anymore. And every hour we hold them here is an hour that our people back home have to prepare. Some of you have families on Earth. Some of you have friends, loved ones, people you will never see again. Fight for them. Some of you have no one waiting. Fight anyway. Fight because it is right. Fight because this is what humans do. We do not surrender. We do not quit. We do not go quietly into the dark. Today, we show the universe what humanity is made of. Today, we become the shield between evil and everything we love. Today, we make them remember us forever." She took a deep breath. "I am proud to serve with you, all of you. Whatever happens in the next few hours, know that. You are the finest crew I have ever commanded. Now let us go make history." She closed the channel. Around her, the bridge crew stood a little. Their eyes were clear and determined. They knew what was coming. They accepted it. "Battle stations," said. "All hands prepare for combat." 6 hours passed like 6 minutes. The Perseverance sat alone at the dimensional boundary, a single small ship in an ocean of empty space. The crew ate their last meals, wrote final letters home, and made peace with whatever gods they believed in. Then the sensors lit up. "Contact," the tactical officer announced. 5,000 vessels dropping out of quantum fold. They are spreading into attack formation." Watched the display as thousands of red dots appeared. They surrounded her position like a swarm of angry insects. In the center of the formation, one ship stood larger than all the others, the flagship of High Arbiter. "We are receiving a transmission," the communication officer said. "Put it through." His face appeared on the screen. His gray skin was stretched tight with anger. His 4 eyes burned with hatred. "Human vessel," he said, "you have caused more trouble than any species in our entire history. You have destroyed our ships, disrupted our operations, and inspired rebellion across our empire. For this, I should thank you. You have given me the excuse I need to use the extinction protocol." He smiled, a cold and terrible expression. "Your home will burn. Every human on your planet will die. Your species will be erased from existence, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." Stood calm and straight, she met his gaze without fear. "You talk too much," she said. "If you want to get past us, come and try. One ship against 5,000, you cannot win. Maybe not, but we can hurt you. We can slow you down, and we will never ever surrender." She leaned forward slightly. "Humanity does not kneel." She cut the transmission. "All weapons ready," she ordered. "Phase slip drive on standby. This is it. Make every shot count." The fleet opened fire. The battle that followed would be remembered for centuries. One human battleship against an armada of 5,000. Every military academy in 3 galaxies would study it. Every historian would write about it. The Perseverance phased out of normal space a split second before the first weapons hit. It reappeared behind the enemy formation, fired a devastating salvo into 3 destroyers, and vanished again before they could respond. The crew fell into a deadly rhythm. Phase, fire, phase, fire. Each time they appeared, they took out another enemy ship. Each time they disappeared, the weapons found only empty space. But though we're learning, they began to predict where the human ship would appear. They spread their formation wider, covering more angles. Slowly, inevitably, they began to score hits. "Phase slip drive at 70%, engineer reported. We have maybe 12 jumps left." "Keep fighting," ordered. The hours blurred together, jump after jump after jump. The Perseverance appeared and disappeared like a demon of war, destroying ships each time it surfaced. But the damage was accumulating. Hull breaches, system failures, casualties. Commander took a piece of shrapnel to his shoulder but refused to leave his post. Engineer worked with a broken arm, keeping the drive running through sheer determination. The medical bays filled with wounded, and still the crew fought on. After 10 hours of continuous combat, the Perseverance had destroyed 147 enemy vessels. But the price was terrible. "Phase slip drive failing," reported, her voice exhausted. "We have one jump left, maybe two. After that we become solid and stay solid." Looked at her tactical display. They had killed 147 ships. That left 4,853. And behind all those ships, untouched and waiting, was flagship with the extinction protocol weapon. They had not stopped the fleet. They had only slowed it down. "One more jump," said, "make it count." The Perseverance phased one last time, appearing directly in front of flagship. Every gun fired at once, hammering the massive vessel with everything they had left. The flagship shuddered but did not fall. Its shields held. And then the phase slip drive died. The Perseverance became solid, vulnerable. The entire fleet turned its weapons toward them. "It has been an honor serving with you," said quietly. His voice came over the radio. "You fought well, human, but it ends now. All ships destroy them." Closed her eyes. She thought of her daughter one more time. "We held long enough," she whispered. Then behind the fleet, space began to tear open. Not one tear, not two, hundreds, thousands. A massive wound in reality, larger than anything they had ever seen. And through that wound came ships, human ships, thousands of them. The United Earth Navy had arrived. Opened her eyes and stared at the impossible sight. Ships she recognized, ships from Earth, the reinforcements she had never dared hope for. They had held long enough. Earth had received their warnings, and now humanity had come to finish the fight. On his flagship, High Arbiter watched 12,000 human vessels pour through the dimensional rift. For the first time in his 3,000 years of life, he felt true fear. 12,000 human warships poured through the dimensional rift like an angry tide. They were not as elegant as vessels. They were not as graceful or refined. They were built for one purpose only, and that purpose was war. Admiral Way stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, flagship of the United Earth Navy. He was an old man who had fought in 3 wars, buried 2 sons, and lost his wife to the hardships of a dangerous universe. He had thought his fighting days were over. Then the message had come from Captain, a warning about an empire that wanted to destroy Earth, a plea to prepare for war. Humanity had responded in 17 hours. Every ship capable of phase slip had jumped. Factories had worked around the clock to load ammunition. Soldiers had said goodbye to their families and marched aboard their vessels. Now, the entire military might of Earth floated before the fleet. "Open a channel," Admiral ordered, "all frequencies." His communication officer obeyed. Across the void of space, every ship, human and alike, heard his words. "This is Admiral Way of the United Earth Navy. You fired on our people. You threatened our home. You came here to destroy everything we love." His voice was calm but hard as steel. "Surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why humanity survived its own extinction twice. You have 1 minute to respond." On the flagship, High Arbiter stared at the human fleet in disbelief. This was impossible. His scouts had found no advanced civilization beyond the dimensional boundary. They had found only a small, primitive planet with a young species barely capable of. And yet here were 12,000 warships. Here was a military force that matched his own in size and apparently exceeded it in determination. "My lord," his tactical officer said, "what are your orders?" Considered his options. His fleet had been fighting for 10 hours. They were tired and damaged. The human vessels were fresh and ready for battle, and he had seen what human weapons could do to ships. For the first time in 3,000 years, He faced an enemy he was not certain he could defeat. But he was the high arbiter of the Empire. He could not surrender. He would not surrender. All ships, he ordered, attack. The final battle of the war began. Human and vessels clashed in a storm of fire and death. The void of space lit up with explosions. Ships died on both sides, their crews sacrificed in the chaos of combat. But they were exhausted and the humans were fresh. They were fighting for pride and the humans were fighting for home. Slowly, inevitably, the tide of battle turned. Admiral directed his forces with the skill of a lifetime of warfare. He sent his fastest ships to flank the enemy formation. He used his heavy battleships to hammer the center. He coordinated his attacks with precision that they had never faced before. And all the while, the damaged Perseverance sat in the middle of the battlefield, protected by a ring of friendly vessels. On the Perseverance, Captain watched the battle through a viewport, too exhausted to stand at her command post. Her ship was too damaged to fight. Her crew was too wounded to man their stations. But they were alive. They had survived. "We did it," Commander said, his arm in a sling. "We actually did it." "Not yet," replied. "Not until surrenders." As if hearing her words, the tide of battle shifted decisively. A squadron of human cruisers broke through the lines and made straight for the flagship. Their weapons hammered the massive vessel from every angle. Shields finally collapsed. His engines failed. His weapons went silent. The mighty flagship of the Empire drifted dead in space. "My lord," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost power. We cannot fight. We cannot run." Sat on his throne, surrounded by the wreckage of his bridge. Smoke filled the air. Sparks flew from broken consoles. His dream of eternal empire lay shattered around him. "Surrender," his advisor urged. "There is no shame in accepting defeat against a worthy opponent." Laughed bitterly, a worthy opponent. For 40,000 years they had believed themselves supreme. They had conquered 3 galaxies. They had crushed 100 species. They had never once considered that someone out there might be stronger. And now, a species they had never heard of, from a planet they had never noticed, had humbled them completely. "Open a channel," he said quietly. "Tell them we surrender." The message went out. Across the battlefield, the ships stopped fighting. They lowered their weapons and raised signals of submission. The war was over. Humanity had won. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy transformed. The Empire fractured into a dozen pieces. Subjugated species rose up and claimed their freedom. Governments that had existed for thousands of years collapsed overnight. And at the center of it all stood humanity. They had not come as conquerors. They had come as liberators. They helped the freed species establish their own governments. They shared their technology with those who needed it. They built alliances based on respect and mutual benefit, not fear and domination. A new coalition emerged, led not by force but by example. Humans sat at the diplomatic tables, not as masters but as partners. They helped write new laws, establish new institutions, and build a future that was better than the past. The Extinction Protocol weapon was dismantled. The biofactories were destroyed. The slaves were freed. Justice, long, finally arrived. High Arbiter was tried for his crimes against countless species. He was found guilty and sentenced to live out his remaining years on a prison world, stripped of his power and his pride. As for the Perseverance, the ship that had started it all, she was too damaged to ever fly again. Her hull was with 100 battle wounds. Her engines were burned out. Her drive was destroyed. But she was not abandoned. The damaged vessel was towed back to Earth, to a place of honor in the capital of the United Nations. There she would rest forever, a monument to courage and sacrifice. Captain stood before her ship one last time. She wore her dress uniform, the medals of a grateful nation shining on her chest. Around her stood the survivors of her crew, 3,891 men and women who had faced an empire and refused to surrender. "They will remember us," said softly. "They will remember what we did here." A reporter approached her. "Captain, what will you do now?" Thought about the question. She thought about the battles she had fought, the friends she had lost, the impossible odds she had overcome. She thought about her daughter who was waiting for her at home. "Rest," she said. "I will rest, and then I will help build something better than what we tore down." She turned and walked away from the Perseverance. Behind her, workers were already beginning to construct the memorial that would surround the old ship. 50 years later, a statue stood at Horizon's edge, the place where the final battle had been fought. It showed a single human battleship facing an endless void. Below it, a plaque read, "They came from nothing. They held against everything. They reminded the universe what humanity means." Beneath it, a smaller inscription listed the names of the fallen. 236 crew members of the Perseverance who had given their lives so that others might live. They were not forgotten. They would never be forgotten. And across the rebuilt galaxy, when young species asked the elder races what humanity was, the answer was always the same. They are the ones who do not yield. They are the ones who stand when others fall. They are the ones who fight for strangers and die for friends. They are, in every way that matters, the best of what the universe can produce. The young species would look up at the stars and wonder at these strange beings called humans. And somewhere, deep in their hearts, they would hope that if darkness ever came for them, the humans would be there to stand in its way. Because that was what humans did. They stood. Always they stood. On Earth, in a small house by the sea, an old woman sat on her porch and watched the sunset. Was 93 years old now. Her hair was white. Her hands were weathered. But her eyes were still sharp, still fierce, still unbroken. Her granddaughter ran up to her, a child of 7 with her mother's eyes. "Grandma," the little girl asked, "tell me the story again, the one about the spaceship." Smiled and pulled the child onto her lap. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a ship called Perseverance. She was small and she was alone, and she faced an entire empire that wanted to destroy her home." "What happened next?" the child asked, though she knew the answer by heart. "She fought," said. "She fought and she survived and she never ever surrendered, because that is what we do, that is who we are." The sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The old woman and the young child sat together, watching the stars appear one by one. And out there among those stars, the legacy of the Perseverance lived on. Forever,